Welcome back, everybody, to Career and Mission Growth. Today's podcast is another exciting edition for you. I'm super pumped to have a new guest with a new business to help you think about growing your business, but more importantly, growing yourself and maybe using culture to take you to the next level. So I'm excited to welcome to the show, William Fitzgerald. William, how are you today?
Good, James. Fantastic. I'm enjoying the good weather we're just discussing. I'm loving it. It's a good day.
Yeah, you and I are both Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for us, we have had, I don't know, I think Austin's always warmer than Dallas, and you're down there and I'm up here, but we've had the hottest summer in the 7 we've been here. And was that the same for you?
It's been bad. It's been vicious. I have 2 kids and it has been the hardest thing to go outside. I know you have a kid yourself and it's been really bad. Like you can't go outside without fearing that you're going to die.
Yeah, it was brutal. Yeah. So hopefully next summer will give us some reprieve from that. Normally we have like a few weeks where you can't go out, but to have months on end where it was really tough. If we believe everything about global warming, which I think I do now, it's only going to get hotter. Yeah, I always make the joke. Toronto's the new Cancun. So get yourself to Toronto because in 20 years' time, it's going to be like Cancun up there.
Absolutely.
That's the weather forecast. Great. Well, we're here to pay it forward for you guys. So a couple of things we're going to talk to you about today. I'm excited to meet William and talk about his new business. And that's not because he's not been in business before. He has, and we'll probably jump into some of that stuff. But if you're somebody who wants to take a sideways step in your career, we're going to focus on growing you today, but we're also going to think about those people who do want to become entrepreneurs and follow in the path of myself. I've been doing this now for just over 4 years. Literally 4 years is kind of coming up this month. And then, William's been doing this for a lot longer than that. But we're going to give you lots of things to be thinking about, thought-provoking stuff. So as we go through this, so let's start and dig into this a little bit. Now, I wanted to ask you, actually, you have an accent. I have an accent. Probably people watching this thinking, how can these two guys end up in Texas? Yeah, so this is a lovely English dialect accent. I mixed places, but where is that accent from? Tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you come from?
So I have a bit of a confusing one. I was born in the States, born in San Jose, and I moved I was in England for a year and when I was about 5, and then I moved to Ireland. So I was outside of Dublin in Kildare, and then I went to a little place called Cork, which is the south of Ireland, which I was there until 18. And then I went to China of all places. And, that's pretty much my kind of like the younger formative years.
Yeah. And now you're here. So welcome home, as they say. Welcome home. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Maybe one day you'll complete this cycle and get back to San Jose, and that's where you'll be. Again, if Toronto's the new Cancun, yeah, maybe San Jose may be in the ocean, so it might be the new Catalonia.
Oh, wow.
So we'll
it's
see.
Possible.
Yeah,
it's possible.
There's so many things going on. All right, so I want to find out a little bit about your brand new business. It's called Passion Fruit. Tell us a little bit about Passion Fruit, and this is going to give people some excitement about what's going on in your world and how that might be able to help them right now.
So passion fruit is something that I think, I've been in business for a long time. I was in the family business for the 20 years pretty much. And passion fruit is something that I'm really glad to be able to do nowadays because of the way the technology is going. If you're watching this today, you know what's going on with GPT and OpenAI. If you're watching this in a few years, like I can't imagine what that's going to look like. And that's the exciting thing. So when I'm talking about this, it's an amazing space to be in for founders and young executives who are having like 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, and they want to do different types of businesses. And passion fruit is really all about using technology to make sure that your passion basically doesn't go out, that light of passion just continues to burn. And that's really the most important thing to me. So it's really combining AI and technology and tooling and also management consulting and making sure that you are doing what you want to be doing and you're the most passionate thing.
Yeah, let's make an important distinction. You're not an AI business.
No, not really.
And I make this joke. Sorry to the AI business owners. What we don't need is another AI business. Yeah. What we do need is some of the things you talked about. I wrote an article this morning about industry convergence pre-pandemic and how industries were coming together because technologies that have previously been separate were converging. Work processes were converging. And there was all of that was going on kind of 2015 to 2019. And the pandemic blew us up a little bit and technology crazy sped up.
Yeah.
AI
Absolutely.
became forefront. Blockchain started to move to the forefront. We saw ChatGPT land on our doorsteps. And the problem with that was we were already having a hard time keeping up with technology before. So lots of people got impacted, lost their jobs. And then we created all these new jobs. Think about, you want to be an Etsy owner or you want to be a caregiver. There's more caregivers needed than ever before now, health practitioners. And then in the world of AI, in the world of ChatGPT, the amount of engineering capability, data, product operations people for those roles is where I think the massive opportunity is going to be. So I like that you brought that up because I really saw that. Now, the problem is, it's a big issue for people is, and maybe I'll get your thoughts on this. I think technology sped up in that little window where the software companies were forced to service a remote workforce.
Yeah.
And now we have
Absolutely.
this return to office. You must come back to the office. Yeah, Amazon,
Hmm.
still back to the office. We have that going on. But what I think was people's response to the pandemic was press reset.
Yeah.
What do I do with my life? Where am I going in my life? Do I really want it? And we saw quitting and we saw quiet quitting and we saw people just doing the bare minimum. But what happened was when we were pressing reset, I actually thought it's like control alt delete. People press reset and fear at the same time. And the worst thing about that was AI came and everybody went, what? How do we handle it? So, yeah, what do you think about that? The kind of industry, the kind of technology pace post-pandemic, and then how you think humans are evolving, say individuals, let's say, how do you think individuals are responding? What are you noticing? And because I think that's probably a big driver for passion fruit. So tell us your opinions on that.
I think there's a lot of, in a lot of ways, a lot of minds are closed. I think there's a lot less space in the world that really nowadays after the pandemic, they've been with themselves and others in very close spaces for quite a long time. And then when they came out, really so many things have changed. And social media is a big part of that as well, which, I've been in social media business now for the last 10 years. And it has created these bubbles of fear and suppression in a lot of ways, and we've been
Yeah.
in our rooms looking at that. It is, I've never seen so many people using reels and TikTok and short form video where they are choosing what they consume so quickly, and they are almost, it creates just this anxiety, and it basically is creating just more and more fear inside of people, and I feel like there's not a lot of space. And so it's an exciting time, but it's also a very sad time. I feel like talking to a
Yeah.
lot of people about this in the industry, they just feel quite lost. There's a lot of conflict at the moment in the world, on the larger scale and also on the smaller scale. It
Mm,
is one of the most safest times in our history in a lot of ways.
yeah.
But, the way we react to wars and the way we react to conflict is very different. And it's something that we're much more aware of things, but at the same time, we're very scared of that.
Yeah. If I was the psychologist, we could probably jump into how do we process feelings and talk about where these wars are
Yes.
coming from.
Yeah, yeah,
The timing of them
absolutely.
is probably not a surprise if we take a look at
Yes.
psychology of what's going on. I'm not going to go there.
I do agree with you though.
I'm actually going to touch on some of the things you said. Yeah, I always had this phrase anyway that doubt is universal, and I've done short form video on doubt being universal, and I know that people consume that, but don't always appreciate. It doesn't matter what happens next in your life. The doubt will always surface at some level, and you're going to need some skills and some tools to deal with that. But one thing you did say there about whether it's digital platforms, social sites, one of the things I've seen is a separation and a division of people, and they've become more tribal, perhaps. There's even people who will tell you that one digital platform is better than the other. And they'll fight their corner for that thing, and it's driven by exactly what you're talking about, that kind of anxiety and depression-led stuff of escapism to suppress these feelings that we've had post-pandemic. But ultimately, what I see, and maybe this is where your business is serving, is you're servicing delay, what I call delay. I think that people are making decisions slower, the big decisions in their life, and that is increasing their suffering.
Yeah.
And so your business is about growing individuals, growing people so they can grow their businesses, maybe even helping some career executives, CEOs, mean, it sounds like your sweet spot is founder, but helping those CEOs too think about, why are we trying to embrace all this technology tomorrow? Because you didn't do that pre-AI or pre-pandemic. You were still wrestling, as you were CEO pre-pandemic, you were still wrestling with industry converging technologies, converging work processes, and a public getting more and more disillusioned with where they were. So do you see that maybe that's what you're servicing, is that you have the ability and the skill set as it relates to kind of your social media experience and your business, your experience running a family business for over a decade? Do you think that's where you'll be able to service, is helping people make higher quality decisions faster?
I think that's a really good way to put it. Yeah, I think that higher quality decisions are something that we've also never had to deal with at this level, at this scale. I think it's very scary to think about how, if you think about like, oh, tomorrow I can just go viral, and you think about what that actually would mean to your life, I think you would find yourself pretty paralyzed. And so, in a lot of ways, we're like, oh, it's a time where success is so much easier to get. Like you can definitely deploy a bunch of bots and AI across your company to run a much larger organization than you have before. You can deploy yourself as a consciousness into a social media platform like we're doing here, and you can have a scenario where it just blows up tomorrow. I think that people are very scared of that success in a lot of ways. They don't want to expand into that type of world, because like you don't know what viral means, if it goes to 1 million, if it goes to 2 million, if it goes to 500 million. And so it's very important. I was, writing an article the other day about why people have a paralysis with actually creating content. And in my opinion, it's because their mission, they don't want it to be dissected. Because every time you create content, you're really dissecting more and more of your mission. And like at the end of it, you might find, well, don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why am I creating this content to realize that I'm just a business that's supporting my family? But I don't want to do anymore. So it's like you almost subconsciously know that, and you're like, well, I'm not going to create content then, and then you don't enter into the field.
But I like that you said it the way you did. We both have that experience of ending up in a place where, yeah, your business is good, life not so good.
Yeah.
What did we create? What did we surround ourselves with? And I share with my clients all the time about, you've surrounded yourself with work and you've forgotten to live your life.
Huge.
And it's getting, and that's why I love your business name, is this passion fruit, is getting back to, how do you want to live your life? What was your expectation that you had for yourself, and how are you going to get back there? One of the things I see is this: people have all the talent and they have some skills. And one of my mentors says, everybody knows this much about everything. He actually says it like this, this much about everything. Mm-hmm. We do need coaches, we do need mentors. And I think we're trending to a world where a lot of people will have coaches to help them through. But what I see with my clients, and I'm going to ask you a question about this, is that they've got all this talent, they've got all this skill set, they've got all this expertise. Most of my clients, are CEOs and founders too, or they're SVP, VP type clientele in their organizations. So they've seen a bit of life. They've been around 15, 20, 25 years, and they've climbed, the ladder, or they've climbed to their success in their business. But what do you think is the biggest mistake that you're seeing with the founders that you come across? What are the mistakes they're making with all this expertise and all this talent? I mean, you've said fear of the responsibility, perhaps, of taking things on to the next level. But what else is going on? What do you see are their kind of daily mistakes?
I don't think that it's much different from any of the mistakes that we've ever made across the human history. I don't think that it's extremely different, but I would say that paralysis is something that I really do resonate with myself. Like I've had it myself. Is it a mistake? Not exactly, because I think it's more like a wind up, and you're almost like winding up to kind of explode into a particular place. And if the explosion is very, very important. So sometimes when I'm dealing with companies and founders, it's like, okay, well, I'm waiting. And it's like, are you waiting, or are you feeling more and more resentful that you're not taking the actions that you want to be taking? It's like, usually it's that. And normally, a lot of times you just have to sit with these people and like, okay, this is going to explode at some point, because you can feel that they have like this. There's usually two directions, and if people are talking to me, normally it's the growth direction, and they a lot of times are just feeling like, I want to be expanding, but what does that mean? What does it mean for my mission? What does it mean for myself? And they do overthink that, and at the end of the day, dissecting everything that you're going to be having on social media, or taking this paralysis and not creating the content and being stuck in it and overthinking it every day,
Yeah.
it's not going to, normally people realize it's not going to make a huge difference to overthink and to, you just have to accept and embrace change. And I know it's people say that all the time, but it's such a difficult thing to do. It's just entirely different. Having kids, I think, has been such an amazing thing for me. It's an extreme, like, honor to be able to see how another life form embraces change. And they embrace change so quickly. It is incredible. Everyone says it, but when you have it, like, you just see, wow, change is something that happens every minute, every few minutes. And for us, we're like in this paralysis, and we're like, well, change is not something that I don't want to have for 5 years. It's not in my 5 year plan. And your son or your daughter is not going to be thinking that. They're not going to be thinking, well, I've got a 5 year plan down the road. They're gonna be like, I'm changing now. This is what's happening. And the parents are like, oh, geez, don't change now. Don't do this. It's going to change everything. And like, it's like if you give your kid a new bike, and like, you didn't realize that he was just going to be, I didn't realize you can go to the store 2 miles away. And it's like, that changes everything. And that is something that it takes a lot of faith. And that, I think, is what nowadays we're seeing, is like, we're just so void of, like, I don't believe that this change is going to be beneficial for myself. So it's better that I just get into a place and I'm protecting myself. So
Right.
embracing change. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for talking about kind of the gift of fatherhood that, both you and I share now. Yeah, because not everybody can get there. And I know it's a tough journey, it's a tough journey for me, but to have that blessing, and yeah, exactly, to watch your kids up. In a couple of phrases that I always throw out there, I love to throw out, is, one is that, we think, or we teach our kids how to live, and then they teach us all about life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And,
I love
and,
that.
and the other one is, we think we're teaching our kids to grow up, but they're teaching us to grow up. And yeah, I think it's been life changing for me, and I'm glad you shared that, because for the blessing and the gift that it is for the people who get to experience it, not everybody does. I think they're really valuable. So if you're one of the people who's been unfortunate enough to not have children, I recommend you get around other people's children and see if you can play a part in their lives, where you can do that. And then you talked about change, yeah, and I just see constant phases. They're just shorter than they would have been, seemingly in my life. I felt like change was slower than it's happening for my son, but actually his phases can be 2 weeks or 3 months, completely fixated on something, and then suddenly there's a shift, and then our day changes because of the fixations or the preferred interests or whatever they want to do next.
Hmm.
So our focus has always been, let them play.
Yeah.
Let them play. And so with that in mind, is some of what you're doing, I'm going to ask you why you do what you do, and you've touched on it now. I think you've got this little family dynamic, so that's kind of one thing. So I'm going to ask you that. So as we think about change, and we think about the kind of dynamic of handling change, and then why do you do what you do? What is the unique benefit of that unique mechanism that's going to help a founder or a CEO manage all of these dynamics we're talking about? They do have a family and they do want to live a life, but they also want to have this modicum of success in their working life. They want to feel like they made an impact. They want to feel like they made the
Yes.
contribution.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that? Why do you do what you do, and what are you seeing in the founders? What are they asking you to bring them as a big benefit?
It's so important to me that the light of day sees that talent that people have. I think that that's been something that has been extremely passionate for me, because I've seen so many people stop. And like, in reality, most of people just don't continue doing what they really want to be doing. They don't play, because play has got so many connotations and different ways of understanding it. And we're like, as an adult, you put away childish things type of situation. And it's unfortunate that we've gotten to that place. It's not, it's a good thing and a bad thing. And for me, it's very, very important that I bring back those concepts into a career, or into a workplace, or into a culture of a workplace. So it's very important. And just because I've seen it, for me, like, look, I've done business in Ireland, I've done business in China, I've done business in the States. And, I've been in a strange situation. I've done it from a very young age. And, growing up in a company that was explaining technology to many, many different demographics, mostly developers, and working with the likes of the Googles and the Ciscos of the world, for me, I've got a strange experience. And that experience, again, always comes back to what people don't really want to kind of engage in life. They don't want to engage with change. And you talk about change management, but in reality, it's more like enabling, like you said yourself about your own kids. It's really about enabling people to get out there and to just embrace their passions, to find their passions, and
That's
to
that's
kind of
good.
just to give them a stream. I used to love playing in water as a kid, like, on the sand, and just being able to kind of have the water go down in different ways. It's fascinating to see how water travels through different mediums like sand, and it goes to the place of least path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And
I
in a
think
lot
if
of
anyone's
ways,
watching
go
this,
on.
by the way, I'll share this with you. We can see you're a deep thinker. So when you tell that story, I think it just confirms what we already knew. But I know you've given us this picture of this young man on the beach because I see that.
Sorry.
Yeah, I see that deep thinking, analytical mind at work but also the wonderment of that.
Mm,
This is a wonderful thing to see, and that's been the blessing with my son. Yeah, is watching him do things that I would never look at the world that way. And so
yeah.
that's a blessing. But yeah, so enablement. Yeah, what else about you're able to enable these folks? What else can you what else answers that question? Why do you do what you do?
I think I like I said, I just love to see people flourish. And I love to be able to kind of be that I suppose person with them to not guide them because I think they know where they're going. But I think it is about taking those roadblocks out and saying like, this path of resistance is the one that
Yeah,
you put down there yourself. And at the end of the day, we only have like, and I know many of your own guests have talked about this, but it's like you're the person who obviously has that resistance there. Like there can be different things happening. So you could be stuck in a prison, for example. But in reality, it's like the only thing that matters is your experience. And
yeah,
the only thing that's blocking your experience is the opposite of your experience, whatever that may be, and your separation between your own experience. So conversation is going on a bit of an adventure with people and watching them kind of allowing them really. I suppose and the biggest thing for me, it's quite selfish, is that I realize the more space I have inside myself, the more space that they're generally going to have as well. Because you're with people, they're just amazing, talented people, hugely, hugely just they have so much energy. And if
yeah,
you give that space, it'll find the path of least resistance by itself. And so you're just a custodian to the fact that they're growing in that direction. They know where they're going to grow. It's not like I go in there and say, hey, here's a plan of where your business is going to be over the next 5 years. You can implement these types of changes with the technology stack. These things I do, but in reality, the person knows that themselves more than I know that.
yeah. That's good. Okay, so lots in there to unpack. If you're just joining us and you didn't see that, you want to find out more about passion fruit and why the passion fruit exists. Just roll that back, maybe 90 seconds to 2 minutes to get the answers in there. And it leads us nicely in because you started to talk a little bit about it. So let's assume I'm going to become, I'm a founder and I don't like necessarily calling myself CEO, but I'm the founder of
Yeah.
my business. And I kind of put myself in this, role of guide and encourager. So if we're sitting down with me, tell me about how you take, although you said that I know where I'm going. Yeah, I've got a pretty good idea where I'm going. So I know I have all the ingredients, but how do you help your clients bake the cake? What's the first thing that you would say to me? So if we sat down, what would be the first piece of advice that you would give to me?
So I try and go away from advice. I don't like giving advice too much. What I'd like to do is ask a question and say like,
Okay.
what are we doing here? Like, where are we going? And talk to me about it. What are you feeling? And try and kind of figure out where those large pain points that that person is going through, and then find different ways to actually experience those. So it's, for example, if a person is kind of almost add a metaphor, if a person is having a feeling where they're like, I just don't have a lot of energy, and then they start exercising, they go for a bit of a run. And they
Yeah.
come back and they're like, I feel fantastic now. I feel much better. And they didn't realize that like having low energy and then expending energy, like using energy, would actually be doing that. So in a lot of ways, what I try and do is find ways for them to exercise and use energy to actually find where the trapped energy actually is. So it almost seems kind of contradictory.
Well,
But what I do
more
is
like it's like behavioral science, kind of thinking about it that
a
way.
little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I try and make sure that they have the systems in place that they can do what they want to be doing. Because a lot of times, I've had these experiences myself where it's like, so you're spending, like founder and executive CEO, you're spending so much time doing something you really don't like doing. And the reason you're spending time on that is because you're fearful it's going to be having huge mistakes and have big problems.
Yeah.
And you don't want to give it to somebody else because you feel like if I let go of this, my whole business is going to be destroyed. And it's like allowing the person to be comfortable with the fact that they can let someone else do it changes such a huge thing. If
Yeah.
they're comfortable with someone else doing it, and then they're like, well, oh, I didn't realize I had all these passions, and they start doing what they want to be doing, what they're great at, what they want to expand into the world, what kind of impact, like you said, what kind of impact they want to have comes from their passions. And normally it's because they're spending their time doing something they don't want to be doing because they're fearful if they don't do it, things will come crashing down.
I see that all the time. So, most 80% of my business is that career executive who's looking for the next step. 20% of it is this founder, CEO, this kind of entrepreneur marketplace, and I see that too. They get stuck in doing things they don't want to do, and that paralyzes their business. Yeah, I see that all the time. Okay, so where was I going to go with this now then? So, oh yes, I want to add some authority for you because people watching this will look at you and go, is he like 21, this guy? Yeah. So you look incredibly young, but you've been through an awful lot. So I do want to put some authority onto that piece about how would you be the person who knows so much about systems, about marketing, about impact, about contribution. So would you mind sharing a little bit about that historic journey in the family business? Because I know that really is your grounding, and that is where you've done all of these things, but you didn't do it for a small amount of time. You did it for a long period of time, and you are ultimately responsible for the success of the company. Without you, it's not as successful. So tell us a little bit about that. I'd love to hear some historic perspectives of where, maybe give us some examples of, where you make such a big impact because of these things, making sure systems and processes were working. Yeah, tell us that.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's the cornerstone. I touched on it a little bit. The business is obviously in technology and consulting and very much in the, you could say, outsourcing side. And it was based in Ireland. And, what was important to me is like, what is the roadblock here? Like, do we want to be growing or not? And this is for the business ourselves. Working in that field was fascinating because I was always dealing with, from a young age, when I was in my teenage years, I was dealing with people who were explaining very, very difficult hardware and software to other extremely talented people. So they had to understand technology at such a level that they could explain it and do it in, different ways.
Yeah.
And that's something that I picked up on, and it really, really helped me at a core technology level at a young age. And then when it came to people management, it was all about what exactly is in the way. So when I was dealing with the business itself, I realized this is the roadblock that we have. In this case, it was hiring. And in other cases, it was how we're doing our IT. What is our IT management situation, and how can it be done by someone else? And what we really want out of it? Do we really need a full-time person, or do we need a team of people? And so it's really picking and choosing, what exactly the best choice is for the company. Also knowing I've had a very fortunate business background just because of the fact that the type of technology, the industries that I was in, the countries that I was going to, it's definitely something that has been very impactful for me. So I can say, being in Ireland, knowing what was happening in outsourcing at the time, knowing that recruiting and technology was so important at the time, that's what we needed to change. And how technology was going at the time with regards to, that remote. We were doing remote very, very early on. We're doing remote because we had to do remote.
Yeah.
It was something where we were outside of a very large city, and we needed to kind of incorporate the fact that like technology needed to support that person who lived in the countryside. So I've had a very interesting space there where it's like I was supporting that.
Tell us how long, because I don't want it to be lost on people that you've got a global experience with kind of all international locations, five or six places of habitation, but also all the other countries you service through those industries. But you've also got this complete value chain coverage, in that you were blessed in that you were front office in terms of sales, marketing, product, and then you've got all this operational HR even financial, legal perspectives, risk and compliance perspectives, all those kind of things. Yeah. How long did you do that for? Because I don't want people to lose that this just wasn't a flash in the pan. How many years did you actually do that for?
So yeah, it was 20 years. Basically
20
20
years.
years
Yeah.
is
It's
yeah,
like
it's
it
great.
is like five high quality qualifications in business education. Yeah, I'm always impressed when I kind of hear your story. And I think people who are watching this about passion fruit, who are interested in talking to you, have to know that. Yeah, because they won't
Yeah.
necessarily know it, having only just encountered you now. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I do have to thank my parents for putting me in that situation. I mean, that's really where I came from. That was a family business, and it was something that I would say I was built for, and I grew into. I did have a sister, and she didn't grow in the same particular way. And I did grow into that, and I did enjoy it. I did like doing it. There was things that I really liked. I liked making optimizing these systems, if it was
Yeah.
the technology side or the
Let's
people management side.
let's maybe expose a little bit more of the fun side of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, we're still scratching your back a little bit because I want people to understand how successful you've been and also that you're the right person for them. This
Mm.
is this part about, what's the greatest compliment any business or any individual ever gave you?
Oh, that's such a difficult question. I have had some, especially in the last, few weeks. Um, I hate it, and I also really liked it at the same time. That a person in general has said to me that they just see that I'm going to be doing very big things, and that's something that I was very embarrassed about, and I don't like embracing. When we were in social media, and we were the idea behind it was to kind of help people in China have somewhere to go and talk about things. And we were creating content that we reached hundreds of millions of people. We got to an actual community of about 2 million people. And I didn't like it. It's really the problem that I had myself. It's like when we were actually interacting with these people and talking about these things that they were going. I liked the fact that it was one to one. I always liked meeting the people, our community. When we went back to China, we would go to Suzhou, and we would actually have these community meetings. And I would talk to people, and I'm like, "This is great. You and your grandmother is having this, et cetera, et cetera." And I'm like, "That is fantastic." But when someone says you're gonna be doing big things, and it's just like, wow, I don't know what you're gonna be doing, but it's gonna be big. And I remember I had that as well when I was younger. So it's like, obviously I want to have a big impact, but it's something that I just want to make sure that I'm grounded and I'm doing it with people that I really appreciate and respect.
Oh
That's
yeah,
such an important thing to me.
it plays into all those themes of the people you can help the most are those who work doing what they love, when they want,
Yeah,
with who they want, where they want. That's that kind of characteristic. I really like that. Um, Now you've
absolutely.
talked about China. I may be going to put you on the spot in a little bit, but I'll wait a moment for that. But
Yeah.
let's go back to that. So then, with all this experience and where you are now, and that compliment of somebody saying to you, "You're going to do big things," even though I think you've already done big things, so you're going to do bigger things. That's quite a compliment. If you were to go back to that maybe 20, 21-year-old self,
Yeah.
what would you advise that your family business, you're at the point of kind of helping mom and dad out at that point? What would you advise that person to do now with all that experience?
I know it's important. I wouldn't change anything in a lot of ways. I wouldn't change anything, and I wouldn't, it's so hard to go back in time and change the past. I would say that, believing in the fact that I was the only person who could change what was going
Yeah.
on inside of myself and the actions that I took. I think that's very important. It's a sense of responsibility, but it's also a sense of peace, because at the end of the day, nobody can really affect you, and it's really just yourself. And so, like, just whatever's happening, it was a big storm. Like, we've gone through a lot of storms. We were talking about storms before this call, and I've
We're in
gone through
Texas.
yeah, exactly. And I do love them. I do love storms in general, which might actually, be the reason why I've gone through them. But I've gone through a lot of storms, and to weather those storms, you just have to realize, like, that you're in this house of yourself, by yourself. And like, there's a lot of people in there with you, but at the end of the day, there really isn't. It's not like we're talking about some problems. It's really just you. You're experiencing it with other people, but it's at the end of the day, it's yourself, and that's a lot of space. It can be very daunting. It can be quite lonely feeling. But I would just try and reassure myself or anybody who's going through that is like, you're with yourself. You have everything you need right there. Just make yourself feel like, don't add anything, you know?
Yeah, I like that. I like that concept of, yes, the universe is out there, it's cold, and there's a lot of, it's lonely out in space, but you can be lonely inside, and the universe inside you is bigger than the one outside.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
there's so much more to explore. And so, yeah, I like that you did that. So here's the bit, I'm going to put you on the spot. You got a lot of skills. One of your skills is language.
Yeah. I never thought about
Give us, if you don't mind, and you can say, no, I would love for you to give an encouraging statement to wrap this up in Chinese.
哦，那我今天想跟所有的中国人来说，就是你要是会说普通话，我需要你要说相信自己，你也不是说你自己需要就是做什么，你不需要做很多，你知道吗？就是要相信你自己什么都可以做到，真的。All right, that's it.
I'm not the translator, so you're going to have to tell us. First thing, what a skill, an incredible, yeah, but you had the experience of living there. You married a Chinese girl as well.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what that meant, and now we can sign this off and say goodbye to the audience here. But yeah, I just think that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I never thought I would be in language. Like in general, I was in school in Ireland, and I studied Irish, like Gaelic language, for 12 years. Yeah, there you go. I studied for 12 years, and honestly, because I didn't get to use it very often, very sad. But I never really took on to it as well. And same thing with French. What I said really was in Mandarin, which is really just believe in yourself. You don't have to do things. You don't always have to be doing things. It's really just about believing in yourself, and it's not adding on to it. It's just allowing yourself to have belief, That's what I was saying.
I loved it. Thank you very much. We're going to say goodbye to everybody on the call. So see you later, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys soon.